Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab, your destination for all things pleasure as it relates to our human experience, relationships, spirituality, and sexuality. I invite you to join me on this adventure of discovery and hope what you receive inspires you to become the muse of your life's journey. So without further ado, let's explore. Hello, and welcome to the Muses Lab podcast, formerly known as the Save with Sex podcast. I am your host for today, Siobhan L., and I'm super excited because I have someone here in the building that I have admired for so long. We'll talk about how we met in a few, but I want to introduce Latoya Dixon Smith of Greenville Boudoir.
Hi, Siobhan. Thank you so much for having me. And it is a pleasure to be here on the Muses Lab podcast to reintroduce to the world who you are and explain all about, why you do the work that you do, because you've been doing this for a long time. And you are not new to this. And I'm very honored to be here to hold conversation with you and share space with you today.
I'm super excited. First of all, thank you for affirming me. Thank you very much. I think we all, each of us, particularly Black women and femmes, we need to be affirmed in what we do because we often tend to minimize what we do because everyone finds their way to our lane and it's always an influx of people doing similar things that we're doing, but not to the point that we do them. So, thank you for affirming me there. Also, like boudoir, Black women taking over boudoir is very, very important because we need to be able to hold the narrative of the feminine. And you see a lot of men in general doing boudoir, and there's not a lot of advertised women who are doing boudoir. So I applaud you for finding your lane and reclaiming that space as a visual artist and stepping into the forefront of sensuality, sexuality, pleasure, and the erotic, and guiding other women to find themselves in that space. So I want to affirm you.
Thank you so much.
Well. I'm excited. I'm just excited.
Likewise, definitely. And I'm so glad you mentioned being able to find a space for Black women in the boudoir industry. And because as an artist, you look at other images and you can see what sort of lens that they are capturing people through.
Yeah.
And some people like that, and that's fine. Which is why, we all, as artists, we tend to want to offer our own piece or our own version of a message that we feel is very empowering. And I know for me, even in the space of just women in boudoir, other photographers photograph Black women differently in a way that I might not want to, photograph my own clients. And so it really speaks to the beauty of being an artist and being able to tell your own story in your own way. But it also goes beyond just the physical art itself, and the conversations that we as Black women have about how we see each other and how we see ourselves, which is really the conversation that I really want to spotlight, especially on this podcast. And I know you, both of us being Black women are, it's important for us to not only express ourselves in that way, but also to have some compassion in saying, you know what, there are other experiences too that we want to showcase, and having the conversation allows us to do that.
Yeah, I like that. As you were talking, well, first, the way me and can I say Toya? Can I call you Toya?
Yes,
make sure I
please
call
do.
you Toya. Okay. Because some people don't call me that, so I just want to make sure I call you Toya. So how me and Toya met was on Clubhouse. So during season 1 of the Panini, Clubhouse took over. Audio was still big, right? Because podcasting and stuff is still big, and that's still the wave of how we're going to receive content, right? But Clubhouse just kind of took over during the panini. And Toya and I were in a room, and we were talking. I want to say we were in a room with Ashley Cobb, aka Sex with Ashley, and we were talking about sex. And the perspective that each of us were providing was just so refreshing, just to hear Black women talking about sex, because I mean, it seems like that's all Black women talk about now, but it doesn't pale in comparison to the amount of other people who talk about sex and feel comfortable expressing themselves and talking about tips and talking about hacks and relationships and things of that nature. So we started following each other from Clubhouse, and then we transitioned to Instagram. And I was like, oh, wait, Toya does boudoir? And that's just kind of how we got into connecting with one another. The content that each of us share, particularly with Toya shares, is very empowering. And I love seeing visually Black women in a sensual aspect being shown, like our sensuality being shown, because we are over sexualized. So to show our softer, sensual, erotic parts, I love that for us, for Black women, because it's rare, right? So as you were speaking, I was thinking about what are the challenges that you face with a lot of your clients, just trying to ease them into allowing themselves to be seen in that way.
Yeah, that is a great question, because our aim at Greenville Boudoir is to really focus on grounding. And even as you're listening to my voice, I know people tell me you have a very calm demeanor, you have a very calm voice, calm personality, which I definitely leverage in the space of accepting boudoir clients, because people always come in nervous, even if they've done photo shoots before, even if they've done boudoir shoots before, they may come in nervous, because it's very normal to kind of have your guard up a little bit with someone that you've never met before. And they are also going to be perceiving you. And not only are they going to be perceiving you, they're going to be perceiving you in this very vulnerable way. And so naturally we do get nervous. And so my goal, mine and my team's goal is, when they step foot into the studio, it's all about creating a calm environment. And that can be through a lot of different things. Which is great, because it allows us to kind of like teach without saying, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's why we're doing what we do. That could be things like aromatherapy. We all love to light our candles and get that scent kind of filling the room to create a whole vibe and a whole ambiance. It could be, incense. I love incense. So it's usually incense for us. Music is a really big part of creating that atmosphere as well. So we always encourage our clients to create a playlist, something that, whether you're getting ready playlist or something that just kind of helps you calm and ground yourself. And then even after that part of the session, we'll just have a conversation, because even when you think about intimate spaces, if you sort of rush into the action, like, nah, man, like let's have some foreplay. Let's warm up to each other a little bit, and let's get to know each other before we just take your clothes off and just get down to it. So it's all about allowing them to really tap into their senses and take in the environment, something that they're comfortable with, something that they can build some sort of connection to, in a space that they've never been in. That's really important. And so when you ask about what are the challenges, it's just taking the time, just being very patient to read the energy, read the room, and kind of play off of like, what sort of energies are they giving? How are they expressing themselves, and how are they not expressing themselves, and see if we can build our way up to that.
First off, you had me at foreplay, because you know what? You never think about, when you're in this sensual space, setting the tone that way and guiding them into a space of comfortability where they can utilize their sexual energy in a way that allows them to be creatively expressive and sit in that. And I was thinking about, as usual, I was thinking about my introductory my introductory podcast to transitioning from Fate with Sex to the Muses Lab, and I was just thinking about sex has so many different ways that it expresses itself. Sex is a portal. Sex is creative. Sex is energy. Sex is an expression. So thinking about the expressive aspects that we utilize for sex, foreplay, which foreplay is a part of sex, yes, but it's also your introduction into more deeper intimacy, right? And thinking about boudoir and how you're capturing your client, how you're capturing the person, how they're dressed, how they're sinking into their own unique frequency, their sensual frequency, that there needs to be a space of a space of vulnerability, yes, but you need to create the environment for someone to feel comfortable enough to allow that part of themselves to open up. So it's almost like stimulating the vulva so the vaginal canal can open itself up. So you go right in, but you can't go in if it's tight, right? So if someone is right. So if someone is closed off, you have to stimulate that area and create a space of comfort and create a space of relaxation so that the muscles can relax themselves and open. So I love how you call it foreplay, because that's so important. And it's a great analogy on how you ease your client into opening themselves up so that you can capture the best aspect of them. Because as you were talking, I was taking notes, which is not normal. I don't normally take notes, but I was like, oh, I got to write this down. So you even talking about it being a sensory experience. And I think I thought about one of the last times I received a massage, and the massage therapist that I worked with, the gentleman, he asked me, did I have a playlist? And typically when you go in for a massage, no one's asking you, do you have a playlist or music that you want to listen to? You got to listen to that spa zen music that they got in the background and, lay there and let them work on your body, right? But I think curating that experience for someone and asking them what type of scents do they like, what type of music do they like, and creating that sensory experience to just open them up so that they can allow themselves to create more space of comfort. And I never thought about boudoir or even just a photo shoot being so deeply sensual like that. I never thought about it like that. And I like that you take this approach and you think about the experience holistically so that when someone is working with you, they connect with you and they can feel like they are part of the process, as opposed to them just coming in and it's kind of like fast action. And, you come in and you we on a time schedule, put your lingerie on, I got music in the background, whatever, right? So it's not this fast action experience because you're on a time schedule. You want them to feel at ease because it is such a vulnerable experience for them, and because particularly Black women are apprehensive about showing their layers, like peeling back layers, because essentially you're peeling back layers is brave, be in your underwear or whatever type of teddy or garter or whatever you decide to wear, whatever lace and satin and cotton that you decide to wear, whether it's for you or not, you're going to be in those in that attire, and your skin is going to be showing, and you're almost naked, right? So thinking about that just like sparked like 8 different things in my head, because it even made me think about prioritizing your pleasure, and you prioritize the pleasure of your clients so that they feel like, again, that they are a part of the process, and it's not just a thing that you do, but it's an experience that you are creating for them because you want it to be memorable. Man, wow. Thank you for that.
It's fun. It's fun for me also because, I get to see these beautiful flowers opening up and, feeling comfortable enough just to be themselves. We often get into conversations about what home life is like, what work life is like, maybe dating life even, and those things are secondary to the experience that they are in the moment that they are feeling, that they are having. And there's even times, Siobhan, where, you know, we do get into some of the darker elements of people having to, or now having the space to open up about things that they've held on to, which is also why I decided to go and get certified as a sex doula, to help folks get more comfortable within their bodies and to have a better relationship with their body, because it feels very shallow to say that this is just a photo shoot. Holding space for people requires a different level of experience. And like you said, you know, when you prioritize somebody else's pleasure and you prioritize somebody else's experience, that means you also have to hold space for them and hold space for yourself too, because you can't forget about yourself, which is why it's a really beautiful and collaborative experience, that we really want to make it fun. But we also understand that there may be some things that come up that you weren't expecting either. And we want to be mindful of that, because no, I'm not a therapist. However, you know, I could be someone who helps you get closer to those things that maybe you weren't considering, or maybe you didn't feel that would come up, but they did in this moment. And those things could be joy too. You know, it's not just always negative things that people have with these experiences of intimacy and vulnerability. There are some beautiful things that come up. There's some beautiful revelations that people share with me, which is why, you know, it's truly an honor. And I really hope that more, especially Black women, get to experience this, because it's not often that people act as if they care about our pleasure, you know, or not even just act, they don't care, right? If it doesn't benefit them in some sort of way. And this whole experience is like it's a practice. It is being able to put yourself to embody that energy of mindful pleasure, mindful sensuality in a space where you are deeply held.
I'm taking everything in, and I'm like, I'm literally writing notes. I'm writing notes. And you mentioned mindful pleasure. A while ago, I created something called the 4 Pathways of Pleasure, and it included mindful pleasure. I changed it to conscious pleasure, but it's still similar to mindful pleasure. Mindful pleasure, sensual pleasure, playful pleasure, and art-filled pleasure. And I created it as a way for us to determine how to create a pleasure map. So when people talk about pleasure mapping, they talk about it in a way like mapping pleasure to your body, so more of your erogenous zones. But when I think about a pleasure map, I'm thinking about tactics that you can create for yourself to either soothe and satiate in your times of need. So thinking about mindful pleasure, being more conscious and being more aware of how something as simple as a boudoir shoot, how that's making you feel, but also what's coming up for you in your body, what might be resisting you from going a little deeper into a pose, or standing a little, tight in a pose and not opening up, maybe not like opening your chest up. Maybe you're somebody like me who's been busty all your life, so you kind of concave your chest to minimize the strength or the width of your bust, so that it draws less attention, because I used to do that. So it draws less attention to your bust. But in this shoot, you want to elevate and you want to amplify the fullness of your bust and the fullness of your breast and the ampleness of your breast. So, encouraging someone to open up their chest and to kind of elevate their chest or stick their chest out, or even have a bra or something like that that allows you to elevate the bust is it's something that just it's really sitting it's really sitting with me, the nuances and the depth, because when we think about a boudoir shoot, you just see someone in their lingerie and they're in, semi-sexy poses and things of that nature. Like, you just see those things, right? But you don't think about how you can elevate a boudoir experience and add these different elements and curate these different elements and even make it therapeutic. I mean, the sex doula piece is so important. At some point, I'll train to become a sex doula, but the sex doula part is important because now you are taking those tactics that you've learned and you're applying them into a space where it's not penetrative sex, right? But it's an expressive form of sex. And you're taking those therapeutic concepts and you're applying it here, and you're guiding and you're ushering someone to be fully orgasmic in their being and to be fully expressive in their being, and utilizing the boudoir and the lingerie as a conduit for someone tapping into their sexual expression. And the original concept of Say It With Sex was, what is your sexual expression in your daily life? Like, how do you express yourself sexually? Are you a bottom in the boardroom, or are you a top in the boardroom, right? Are you assertive in work with your colleagues, or do you kind of take a back seat? Like, who are you in sex, and how does that sexual expression translate across every aspect of your life? And now, with your boudoir and the process that you take to create space for someone, to create this ritual, because essentially that's what it is, right? You're creating ritual with your clients. And now you are allowing them to look at this sensual experience as a way to tap into their own sensual and sexual expression, their own erotic power. And you're guiding them through photography. Oh my God, this is so ritualistic. You're guiding them through photography on how to tap into that part of themselves. Like, this is like extremely therapeutic. And I don't think anybody is taking that approach. This is for at least to my knowledge, this is such a unique approach. Like, a lot of women will do a boudoir shoot and say, I feel so empowered, but this is different because you're tapping into different layers. Like, you are in so many ways acknowledging that women, and particularly Black women, are not a monolith and that we have layers. So how can I, in this space that we've created, in the sensory experience that we've created, allow you or guide you or usher you into tapping into those different layers, so you can see that these parts of yourself exist, and then move forward in your daily life to go back and to tap into it. And if you need a reference, here's your boudoir, your portfolio, and you get to see all these different expressions of yourself and be like, damn, I didn't even know my face could do that, or I didn't know that I can give this eye, or I didn't know I could twist my body this way, or oh, I didn't know my ass looked good like this and this type of lingerie. Maybe I should, I may not wear it outside, but maybe underneath my dress as I'm going to work or as I'm going to the office, maybe I put this on. And that's showing how, like, clothing and colors and things can be empowering for you. This is very layered and detailed, and I was not expecting that. I am thoroughly impressed. This is beyond my imagination.
No, and I thank you so much for articulating that, because I think I've struggled with putting into words exactly what this experience is. And it's been like a sticking point for me. Me and my ancestors, they keep pulling me back in. I've tried to leave this space a few times now, and I keep coming back. And I know why. And I'm working to articulate it. But what you just said and how you just summarize exactly what this experience is and the layers that are involved in it is exactly what I aim to offer. You were talking about how, particularly imposing in connection with your wardrobe choice, which are actually the top two questions that people have after they book a session is what do I wear and how do I pose? Can somebody help me? What that really, if we think about it in layers, what those questions really target is how can I take up space? Because when you're talking about, you know that your breasts are a part of your body that you really love and you want to accentuate that and you don't want to contract yourself and shrink yourself. You want to expand, you want to take up space. And that's exactly what I witness happening is, you can hear or you can see where people are kind of like ruminating through their thoughts of, okay, well, I'm hiding this part of my body because maybe somebody told me I should, or somebody had something negative to say about it before. And then for me, my job, in the moment is just noticing it and then asking them, are you comfortable? Are you okay? Let's try this and see how you like it. And the thing is, usually when they're posing and they do something that they might be apprehensive about and I don't have a reaction to it, then they're like, oh, okay. Maybe I was, worried about something that I didn't really need to worry about. And then you look at the back of the camera and see how you actually look like, oh, yes. Thank you. I just gave myself permission to take up space and to just be fully in my body and be fully present in the moment without being in my head ruminating over the thoughts of how I look. Because, when we talk about standing in your power, when you are truly empowered, you're not really worrying about what other people are thinking about you.
Yes.
You're not.
Yes.
You're just existing. This is a practice of like, how can I exist and also look and feel my best? So yes, again, thank you for articulating that because wow, I'm definitely going to go back and listen to this and
as you should.
add some of that copy on my website because ma'am.
As you should, because I was going to say, well, you run the tape back.
Right.
I can send you transcripts. Run the tape back and slap that right there. Wow. How can I exist and take up space? Is what you're
Absolutely.
saying. And take up space. This is actually quite therapeutic for me because I had a horrible start to my day. So this conversation,
it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. This conversation is great because I haven't done a boudoir shoot just yet, and I will soon. But even just answering this question for myself, how can I exist and take up space? Because lately I've just been trying to exist. Like existing has been a challenge for me in these last couple of weeks. Like I just want to exist. I just want to be Siobhan, not necessarily Siobhan L, not necessarily Siobhan Morris. I just want to be Siobhan. Like I just want to be me. I just want to exist, and I want to dwell in my moody parts. I want to dwell in my not so moody parts. I want to dwell in my productivity. I want to dwell in my creativity, and I want to be able to interact with these integrated parts of myself as I see fit. But I think the existing part is something that we're constantly working towards just existing. And what does existing look like for us? Because as we grow and evolve, existing changes and it looks different, right? But existing and taking up space is a dual thing, right? Because some people know how to take up space, but they don't know how to exist authentically as themselves. So I think that is like a really good touch point, right? Because I actually don't know how to do both. Surprisingly, I don't know necessarily how to exist as myself because I've masked a lot, and I attribute that to ADHD. I've masked a lot. So being comfortable in who I am and being comfortable sharing that with the world is still new to me. So I'm still getting used to doing that, but also taking up space because I know I'm grand. And because I know I'm grand, I don't ever want to feel like I'm expanding too wide, this goes back to, I have so many thoughts that's happening right now. So I'm in Alex L's Rise and Write group. That is like, I'm on the East Coast, so that's at 5:30 a.m. at the crack ass of dawn. And I don't know who I am to be up at that hour journaling my whole inside thoughts. It is a therapy session at the crack ass of dawn. It's great. It's very therapeutic. It's very refreshing. It's such a blessing. And it's people from all over the world in that group. It's like 170 people on a Zoom call every week, right? And there was a young lady that was in the group that was saying that she just came out with a book and she felt like she was taking up too much space where she was swallowing people. And I said to her, if you're not trying to consume your audience, why would you swallow them? And here I feel my words coming back to me as I'm saying, I'm afraid to expand because I know I'm grand and I don't want to take up too much space. But if my intention is not to consume everybody or to swallow people, then I can stand and be grand with others who are just as grand as I am and still take up space and still exist and not feel like I'm capitalizing or I'm commandeering or I'm dimming someone else's light. So that's a journal prompt.
It
You got
absolutely
journal
is.
prompts. You got rituals.
It
Man.
absolutely is because, that, like you said, that is that is one of the challenges that comes up with, okay, well, now that I've given myself permission to take up space. And if I'm not used to taking up space, then these fears come up of what if I take up too much space? And if I do swallow other people? And in my experience, what typically happens is like the people who may quote unquote get swallowed up, they just kind of fall away. Like, and you don't even have to do anything. But what that shows you is not that you've hurt them, because that it clearly wasn't your intention. And it's not something that you are directly doing to another person. That forces that person to sit with themselves about, okay, why do I feel intimidated by this person enjoying being who they are? Why do I feel intimidated by this person offering so much benefit and value to the world? And other people seem to have no problem with it. They are actually inspired by it. That's their problem. That's nothing on us except, us getting comfortable with holding space for ourselves and even just observing and recognizing that it just ain't for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not. We're just not for everybody. And that's okay. It may not feel okay in the moment, but those feelings will pass, and we're talking about rituals, the more we practice it, the less concerned we are about how it might affect others, when our aim is really to expand in such a way to shift these paradigms that we want to see transformed. We want to see more women activating and enjoying their pleasure. We want this to happen. And so what good does it serve us to temper ourselves because the person who isn't even ready for that yet says, you doing too much? That's okay. You can come back whenever you're ready for this conversation. And that's okay, honey, because you got gems on gems on gems. We got this new podcast coming out and the people need to hear what they want to hear. Okay. So yes, please do take up space, and taking up space, not only physically, but also with your voice. You have a powerful voice and powerful platform. People love to hear your thoughts. They love to hear your ideas and the way that you take in information and just kind of organize it in such a way to articulate it back to them in a way that feels like, oh, wow, like this is attainable for me. It's not something that's so far out of reach that I just have to like sit here and wait for things to just fall into my lap. Like, no, these are things that we can start implementing today. You talk about, your pleasure mapping and all these other tools that you've built in your own toolkit, and you've built toolkits for people to access in order to see it as they are today. That's what you're here to do. And I'm a fan of that. I love that.
Thank you. You're affirming that we mirror each other, because as you were breaking that down, I was like, yeah, because we're mirrors. And I've had moments where I felt intimidated by someone, or I felt like a person was rubbing me the wrong way. And it took me a while to get to a place that was a bit more self-effacing. So as with growth, I was able to take a step back and be like, well, why do I have an issue with this person? And then I realized, well, that person is me. They don't know that, but that person is me. Like, I'm that person, but I've tempered myself, as you said, or I've quieted myself, or I've dimmed myself. Now I'm aggravated because I do the most just like that. I show up just like that. But somewhere along the line, I told myself that I had to kind of cool it down a bit, or relax myself a bit, or, oh, you doing too much, so not do so much. And that just became a natural disposition for me. So when I see people living out loud and being authentically themselves, that tends to aggravate me, because someone told me I needed to relax. And that also could be being in the corporate world. You have to shape yourself a certain way to be received so that you could climb up the corporate ladder. But it was never my intention to climb up the corporate ladder. One, I never thought it was accessible to me, because I've been in survival mode for 2 decades. So I just need a job. So I wasn't even thinking about, connecting and going to climbing the ladder or whatever. So I never thought it was accessible to me. And then when I saw people climb the corporate ladder, the things you have to do to compromise yourself and to compromise your integrity, it didn't really rock with me. So in that space, in order to just maintain a job, I had to quiet parts of myself. And I got into a habit of quieting parts of myself so that I wouldn't be the brash, overly assertive. I'm not really an aggressive person, but I could be loud. As quiet as my voice is, I'm loud because I'm from the hood. So I'm loud. So as quiet as my voice is, I can be loud. I cuss like a sailor. I don't code switch much because I got tired of doing that. My urban vernacular is what it is. Like I'm fully invested into, whether we call it Ebonics or AAVE. That is me. That is who I am. And I can mix it in with some $50 SAT words, but you always going to get some raw talk from me, a raw conversation, raw discussion from me. But I recognize that there were certain spaces where that part of me wasn't received. And instead of, because I operate in extremes, instead of allowing myself to be adaptable to those spaces, I just turned everything off. So I didn't have to worry about having to go back and turn something up or rework a puzzle. I just was like, fuck it, I'm gonna just cool. And then that led me to a lot of the spaces that I am now. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. And I really appreciate that you hold space for women who have a similar story as me, or have quieted themselves like I have quieted myself in many ways. You hold space for them to find their voice again, whether it's in a visual way, whether they feel empowered through conversation with you while they're having their boudoir session. You find ways for them, or you hold space for them to rediscover themselves on that journey. And that's such important work, because there's so many of us who should be loud, who are whispering, and it's killing us inside. And a lot of us don't realize that it's killing us inside. And that is so important, that you just create space for people to be loud again, and to discover that being loud is okay, and taking up space is okay. And that's what you should do, because it's part of your own pleasure frequency, your own pleasure makeup. Like, that's pleasurable for you to live authentically as yourself. That's a pleasure-centered life for you to be authentically as yourself, and you hold space for that. So this is amazing work that you do.
Thank you. You were just speaking about something that reminded me of the workshop that I held last night. It was called Nice for What? The Art of Sacred Rebellion. And part of that conversation, we were talking about, nice girl or good girl syndrome and how that affects us in different aspects, whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And a lot of people don't realize that, compromising yourself, people pleasing, being afraid to say no, fear of rejection, all of these things that we do because we are inherently saying, well, I have to be good enough to be accepted, which is what nice girl syndrome is. It is so, it deteriorates us. Like it takes away from our authentic self being present. And the more we sort of conform and contort ourselves and our personalities and the way that we know how to be just naturally when we feel safe, it's such a destructive thing that, psychologically we think, okay, well, if I do it this way, they will accept me. But then you're like, well, who is me? At the end of the day, who am I? Who is the me that I'm trying to be that cannot be accepted as is? And I think one of the biggest parts of this is realizing like how detrimental it is, not just in the way that we start to quiet our voice and how that affects our relationships, but physically. Like I'm talking about people having headaches and stomach aches from just not feeling comfortable just being themselves. That's a problem. Yes. And I'm not with it. So when you talk about like existing in this pleasure frequency and, feeling more embodied and comfortable in that space, it requires you to just be honest with yourself, right? You have to be honest with yourself and let that honesty be okay with, letting it be okay that it's not going to be accepted by everybody. It's not going to help you maintain the same sorts of habits, or it's not going to maintain the same circles or friend groups or whatever the case is. Like it does require you to shift yourself in a way that may feel unsafe. When you want to feel included and not excluded, you don't want to feel rejected or abandoned. It's some deep shadow work that happens when you decide that this is what you want to do, but ultimately it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. Like the benefits outweigh the consequences of just kind of staying in that space. Now, of course, it doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes we don't even know what we don't know until we start that journey.
Yeah.
But it's why conversations like this and spaces like ours are important so that, we can be mirrors to other people. I wouldn't be able to do this work if I didn't go through an experience of my own where I have been, coming out of a space where I was silenced. And there's still, after years and years and years of doing this work, and doing my own personal healing, I'm still peeling back the layers to discover like who exactly Latoya is when she is not contracting. Who am I when I allow myself to be expressive? And I've been in this space. So I had we talked about this offline, but 2023 has been a year, child. Like we've had some highs, we've had lows. Like it was not really consistent one way or the other.
Facts.
And so I'll tell you, like my summer was I won't say it was a low point because it was a very healing period of my life. Like it wasn't low, like I wasn't in a space that, would concern me physically. I'll say that. But I was definitely in a space where I needed to confront a lot of the things that I've been dismissing. I had to confront what I actually want to do with this space, with this community. I had to confront who am I really? Do I want to go back to the corporate world and just, get on these people's clock and get a check? It would be a nice check because I am a mechanical engineer by, that's what my degree is in. But do I want to do? Do I want to do that? The answer is no, I really don't. And I had to be honest with myself about that, because it's hard sometimes when you're in a space where you just want things to just move and just to be in the flow. And at that last ditch moment when you just get scared to hold space for your own self and what you actually want to do, and not just do what you feel is, you know, gonna work for the time. And I'm not saying this to say that that's how everybody should move, but I'm saying that you will get to a point where you have to decide. Like, you have to put your big girl panties on, or, you know, whatever you got underneath there, and decide. Like, make a decision and let the actions that follow from it support you in that decision that you've decided for yourself, and not let other people decide for you. I decide a lot of things for my children. I have 2 kids. As their mother, it is my job to make these decisions for them until they get to a place where it makes more sense. They have more autonomy over some of the things, like what they eat for dinner, or, you know, what clothes are going to get bought, or whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
And at some point, they're going to have to leave the nest and make these decisions for themselves.
Yeah.
That has been my lesson of the year. Like, leaving the nest of feeling like, okay, everybody else can make these decisions and I'll just kind of follow suit. I'll just get in line, and whatever y'all decide, that's we just gonna go with that. But the universe is like, no, that's not how we doing this. You're going to decide, and I don't care how uncomfortable it's going to be, but you're going to decide, and then let's see what happens. So yes, the way that I hold space for other people is because I go through these personal transformations myself. I experience, you know, the highs, the lows, and having to do my own self-work as well. But ultimately, you know, when I appreciate that, because it allows me to not only hold space for myself outside of the work that I do, but it gives me more empathy and compassion, and seeing like there are other people going through things that I may not be going through myself, but I can hold space for them as they are learning to speak up, take up space, and be loud, as we called it.
Yeah. I'm receiving, because you made a lot of points just now. So I'm receiving. As you were talking, one of the main things that popped into my head is that if you have not thought about it already, you should create a journal, because these prompts that you have shared with the community, these are prompts. And as you were talking, I was envisioning, you know, some of your clients would be willing to be in this journal that's almost like a coffee table book, have their one of their favorite images and a little bit of their story, and then that leads to a prompt, and it gives them space to for people to journal with the prompts that you have based on some of the stories that you would include. That's an idea. That's just me, the medium. That's happening. That's an idea.
Thank you.
Yes. Journal with prompts, because I mean, like, and I'm just going to keep saying it, I just never looked at boudoir from this perspective. And I'm so glad that you are here in this space to share that perspective, because those who listen to this podcast, to this episode, it's going to open their eyes to how something people will see so simple as a photo shoot with lingerie it's so much more. It holds so much more weight. It's so much more expansive. So I'm appreciative of this perspective, and it's helpful for me as well. So that's one thing. Second, you literally just talked about my life for 2023. Like, that's literally my life, because I was in a very similar situation, and I was in corporate, and I transitioned out, and I had to make a decision. And I came across a TikTok that I did earlier this year, maybe like fall, not even fall, probably like early summer, like midsummer. And I said, if you are waiting for some external force outside of you to make a decision, like if you waiting to get fired from your job, you waiting for somebody to lay you off, you waiting for this person to ghost you, you waiting for somebody to break up with you. If you're waiting for the external force to do it, then you're operating in a passive aggressive space and you are not being an active participant in your life. And that aggravated me because at one point I just wanted these people to lay me the fuck off. Just let me go. just let me go, because I know something about me is off totally in my head. These people loved me, so they were devastated that I resigned. But I created this narrative in my head that I had to be doing a shitty job, because why am I going through all of these things with these people if I'm not doing a shitty job? But all of that had nothing to do with me. But that was the narrative that I created in my head. And instead of at that time making a decision to pivot, I just was like, well, maybe if they just make the decision and move me, then great. I don't have to worry about it. It's great for me. I'm free. I'm released. But that's not me being an active participant. And I was pushed into a situation where I had to make a decision. Either you want to stay here in this space and you're going to deal what you're going to deal with, and you're not going to complain. Like, yeah, salary's great, but either you're going to do this or you're going to transition out and do what you've been talking about doing, what you love to do, what your passion is for who knows how many years. So what you going to do? You going to stay here or you going to leave? If you froggy, you going to leave. So I had to be like, well, I guess I am froggy, and I had to leap. And that often, what people don't tell you about when you take a leap is that it feels like everything is going to fall into place when you leap. Sometimes it don't happen like that.
It don't.
You leap and you like, yeah, I hit the ground. And it's like barren land. You're like, oh shit. Where's the landscape? And it's like, you might have to travel a little bit to the other side of whatever the horizon is, thinking very Three of Wands. So you might have to travel to the other side of the horizon to get to your landscape, to get to home, right? To come home. You might have to travel a little far to come home. And it may just take a lot longer than you anticipated, because oftentimes we make the decision to leap and we think like everything is going to fall into place, and it doesn't. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're out of alignment. Just sometimes things take a little bit longer. Like fast in our mind may not be fast in universe time. So fast for them could be like, 4 months from now. That's fast. In our mind, fast is like next week. So that's
tomorrow. Right now.
Tomorrow. Like now. Like soon as I left. Like an hour from now. Like boom, it was supposed to happen. And that is not always realistic. It happens like that for some people. But for a vast majority of us, when we take the leap and we make the decision and we choose ourselves, the results don't always reveal themselves immediately. There's often a journey, another part of the journey that you have to go through, another part of the chapter that you enter when you decide to choose yourself. So I resonated with that because it wasn't my summer. I actually had a really good summer, but the first half of 2023 was shit. And I wasn't sure if this was going to be the thing. I was like, all right, y'all, like, what is this? Because it was extremely rough. And, I just take those lessons with me, and I'm not going to gaslight myself like I did this year. I'm not going to do that.
I saw your reel about that.
Yeah. Who did I gaslight myself this year? I'm going to actively work towards not doing that, because, things happen and people try to shape your reality and make you feel like your mind is going in different ways and you're viewing things differently, or no, that's not, it's all in your mind. That's not what's happening. And it makes you second guess your intuition. And I understand now why people have challenges with trusting their intuition is because they probably have people around them that are convincing them that what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're hearing, what their mind's eye is telling them is a false narrative. So I get that. But yeah, when you choose yourself, it is, I believe, or I believe the beginning stages of taking up space when you choose yourself, because in order for you to take up space, you got to choose yourself first. And I, yeah, I resonated with that deeply because this year was a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh. We gon' a moment of silence for 2023
Yeah.
because
Yeah, a 7 year. Sevens is supposed to represent like good luck. That's what the numerologists tell us. That sevens is supposed to represent, good luck and good tidings or whatever that they say. We found out that's a lie. The sevens was not good luck. So next year is an 8 year. Eights are all about harmony,
okay.
balance.
We like that. We like that. We like
We got a
that.
little infinity going on. So we're going to see hopefully we're going to see some reciprocity with this 8 year that we are entering in. But 2023, it wasn't completely trashed, but it wasn't all that great.
It had its moments for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely am looking forward to 2024 coming back into Greenville Boudoir, which is my company based in Greenville, South Carolina. But I'm actually starting to getting back into coaching, which allows me to support folks who are not here in South Carolina as well. I mean, we could definitely speak more onto that at some point, or we can share that in, for folks who might be interested. But I also want to, because you have been sharing some things as well, and I know that a lot of the folks who are from my camp who might be listening may also want to explore those as well. Could you remind me, Siobhan, what are some of your favorite offers that you're releasing, or that you have, and that you will be releasing soon?
So I have started back again my one-on-one sessions. So one of my favorite offerings that I created for the people is the year ahead pleasure guide to year ahead reading. And we look at your year ahead in pleasure and what that looks like for you. It is often a combination of tarot and oracle. Those are tools that I utilize, but I am a medium. So sometimes I don't pull cards. But in this instance, for the year ahead guide, as we're looking into your 12 months, I do pull cards for that and break down what each of those cards represent and how you can utilize that to expand yourself into pleasure and sink into pleasure. So that's one of the main offerings that I have, but I do have one-on-one sessions that I do with folks, and it doesn't necessarily have to be pleasure. It can be anything. It can be thought partnership. It can be, again, about how to take up space, just kind of synthesizing your thoughts on whatever you are experiencing, some clarity that you may need around a question that you may have, a path that you are journeying through. If there's something, your peripheral is off and you feel something and you just need someone to just talk that out, I hold space for that as well. So those are some of the one-on-ones that I offer, the consultations, the intuitive consultations that I offer. I am in the process of, I'm sharing this, and I'm like, as I like, right as it was on the tip of my tongue, I was like, should I say this? But I'm going to say it. I'm in the process of creating a curated box called the Muses Play Box, and it is going to feature products from Black-owned, women-owned brands that I love and I patronize. So I am selectively curating the box to feature those different products. And I'm doing a soft launch for Galentine's Day. So I'm doing a Galentine's Day box. And I can say it now because I've secured like most of the vendors for the box. So it's happening. So that is occurring. So that'll be for February. And I do have my own Oracle deck called The Invitation to Pleasure Volume 1. That is available for purchase currently. And you can find that at the Muses Lab, www.themuseslab.com. A website it took me 3 years to put up because I had it sitting in draft for 3 years, and I finally got it up and it only took me 2 minutes. So shout out to anybody who is neurospicy. Whether you have ADHD or autism or one of the neurodivergent branches, shout out to y'all. Don't overthink it. Just do it. It literally took me like, I'm saying 2 minutes, but it wasn't 2 minutes. It took me like an hour to put the website together, and I had it sitting in draft for 3 years. So don't overthink it. Find your happy medium with doing your things. I'm not an ADHD coach, but I can help you with tips and hacks and things that I've been utilizing for myself as a late diagnosed person with ADHD. I do assist with tips and tricks and things of that nature. But www.themuseslab.com for all the things, all the informations. And if you want to work with me, if you want to collaborate with me, I am a writer by craft. That is what I do. So any type of writing or creative projects, collaborative projects, I'm open to that because I am a full spectrum creative as well. So that's all I got for now.
Love it.
Yay. This was amazing. This was awesome. We talked for a whole hour. I love that.
Yeah, we did. We definitely did.
We had something.
I told you, I knew, and we didn't even talk about the things we said we were going to talk about. Well, we did, but like some of the other things that came up. But there's so many different things to like get into when you can't just cover surface level stuff. That's no fun.
So that sounds like we're going to do a second podcast. That's what it sounds like.
I am open. I am definitely open. I'm definitely open. Thank you again. This was great.
Thank you.
This is a really good like. I think people who are intro to like my stuff, this is a good podcast to listen to because you get to like, you don't just get to see images, like you get to hear like the artist and like what goes on in this brain of mine when I'm behind the camera. Yeah.
And that's important. And that I wanted to ensure that we held space for that because, getting the behind the scenes and understanding the mastermind behind the idea and behind the creativity, that's super important. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Not particularly. I mean, I did talk about the coaching that's coming up and I can give you the link for that, to share, but that's pretty much it. Like I'm still working on my cards. Actually, maybe that was something I would ask you like offline. I have my concept, but when it comes to like mass production or I don't know what process you prefer for that. I'm curious because like I want to make it as easeful as possible and not have it be too many like fragmented processes that I have to link together, et cetera, et cetera. But I told my friend that I wanted to make a journal to go with those cards. So when you said you should make a journal, I was like, okay.
The medium shows up at any given time.
She does. Appreciate you, Siobhan.
Of course. Appreciate you too, Latoya. Thank you so much for being part of the Muses Lab podcast, one of my first episodes under the Muses Lab podcast name. And thank you all for tuning in. And until next time. Thank you for tapping into the Muses Lab. I hope you enjoyed this week's adventure. Be sure to like this episode, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and share the wealth with others. Dive deeper into the lab by joining the Pleasure Frequency list at www.pleasureFrequency.com. themuseslab.com. Receive weekly musings, early access, and exclusive drops, as well as discounts on products and services. Thank you once again for tapping in. Until next time.